Good morning, everybody. I still got a teaching video I made yesterday morning, so there's like 2 videos going up before my teaching video. I kind of talked a little like this, and then I did some teaching, and I want to add some posts and verses and all. The clocks go back this morning. I hate it when it does that because I get up very early. And my wife heard me last night when it said, "Don't forget the clocks go back." And I was like, "Oh, no." She laughed because she knows I don't want extra hour of sleep. It means I'm up an extra hour, I get up so early. But this is just talking about I want you to see in the line of, somebody mentioned on the Christian radio station the other day, they mentioned that a lot of the cops they seen recently, wherever that station is, the DJs, they said they're so young and they're like, they look like kids. And I noticed that in the paper there was a new group of rookies that, came out. I heard this year, like a lot of the veteran guys, they're retiring, a lot of them because the spotlight is on things. Maybe some of them did things. They thought, let's get our retirements quick. It's possible. But when I saw some of the young people, just the kids, I thought these older guys that have engaged in a lot of stuff you've heard me talk about, I know that they feel that they have a camaraderie. But when they get away with many of the things you see me talk about, they do a disservice to those kids. Because I'll tell you, whenever I see a cop vehicle, the other day, no threats from me. I just see them and you begin viewing them all through the lens of the experiences you had. And I think you did such a disservice on those kids. Many years you've heard me, when I started doing a lot of these videos, it upset me to hear people and to know cases, and I gave you cases, friends on Facebook who were assaulted by officers, who were threatened, assaulted, beat up. You've heard them all. They're on Facebook, some of these friends. All of these were true stories. And the guys also told me that that same officer, I'm not going to give his name again, but he killed somebody in the back of his cop car once. And I think it was at the Paris Apartments, which is here in Corpus Christi, which is Flower Bluff. One of the guys from the streets, I don't think I knew that guy, but he had arrested him on something. I'm sure it was a legitimate thing, and he died in the back. That officer was in the back seat with that guy, and he died. And then the guys had told me they investigated. I've heard this a few times. They investigated him at that time and said the guy died of asthma or something. The problem with all that is, you've heard me detail many, many things. If you had an officer that made threats to guys, has a history of actually assaulting those guys, taking his uniform off, and when you have that history, and then one of those guys dies under his care, you have to, that's just not a normal case. Now, I'm done. I'm not, I want Tommy to know I pray for you, Tommy. I'm not, some of the guys said that he's scared. I'm not looking for you. You're probably happy that I'm now posting the Jim Wells thing. Why did the Jim Wells County deputy thing get me upset? Though it wasn't a big thing, it showed you on a small scale that officers, that deputy broke the law by saying a vehicle was deemed abandoned when it did not meet the criteria. This abandoned vehicle, you're not supposed to use the law in a way like that. That's enough for him to be fired. But it showed you on a small scale that many of the guys, many cops and officers, will view it through that lens. that the law is not something that they obey. It's something that they actually will break in order to go after people that maybe they feel stood up in front of them or whatever. So that was why that example was important. That's why I wanted to give it. I want you to see that. And many of the people that have had legitimate grievances, children killed, that I'm going to post, when I post the teaching video, or maybe I'll post the other thing today, I'll post that thing about that retired officer, 70-something years old, and he killed a 30-something-year-old guy in a movie theater. And when he killed that man, he actually also shot his wife in the hand. You know, I'll post the one story I saw. I Googled it and went back to get the story from 2014. His wife is traumatized. And that man is, that cop that did it now, they're going to do a defense, which he's going to lie. Because the wife, his wife, the cop is going to say, the defense is going to say that that man in the theater assaulted him. Now, this cop had confronted somebody else in that same theater like a week or a month earlier, said the same thing. So he had a history, he's a retired cop, of confronting people in the theater because they were using their phones. I've done that. I've told somebody once at the discount theater, this was many years ago, but he had his phone on, and I had my kids in the discount movie. My kids seen this. And I got mad at the guy. He was just in front of us, and I actually said, shut that phone off or I'm going to take it from you. I didn't. I didn't threaten him. I told him, shut that phone off or I'm going to take it from you right now. And he shut it off. So I understand. So this retired officer, he also was texting in the theater. But the thing that it would be better for him, he's 70-something. Obviously, he doesn't want to spend the rest of his life and die in prison. But he's going to lie and say that guy tried to assault him. And the officer's wife has already said, no, my husband's lying. But it would be better for that officer to say, I lost my temper and I killed somebody. And the blood of the person I killed is a tremendous crime against God. And I realized that I shed the blood of an innocent man. But instead, if he gets off through the lie, I read a verse yesterday or the other day. It says, whoever takes the life of another person, that blood is on that person. I always think of O.J. Simpson. And how I just remember thinking, even if you get off, because you have a very good Johnny Cochran jury and all this, lawyer, but there's a thing that comes upon a person, especially if you take the blood, you do not get away with that. I've been talking about Kant. I don't want to make these a teaching video, but I can teach whenever I want. But Kant, the philosopher Immanuel Kant, said, in order for society to function, there had to be a belief in God, though he rejected the traditional classical view that through science, natural theology, and reason you can prove God. So he rejected that, and a lot of Christians are critical of Kant for that reason, because he rejected the historical view for the defense of God. But Kant also believed in God. And he said still, Kant he was kind of famous for making up words, so he divided the realms, the noumenal realm and the phenomenal realm. But he said there were certain things in the sense realm and the material realm that we can investigate, learn, and look at. But when you get into the realm of the soul and spirit and God, that's another realm, and so you can't, it's kind of an okay argument, but classical arguments for the existence of God do not embrace Kant's view. But Kant did say, there must be a belief in God in order for society to function, because people have to know at the end of the day, there is going to be a just judgment, and that God has the ability to judge justly and rightly. And so I saw a case of one of the black men that were on death row or in prison. I think he was on death row many years, 30 years. They found him innocent. And I remember, and this is just one, there's been many. And the day I saw it on the news, he came out in the front of the courthouse and said, they asked him what, and most of these men forgive. I noticed that. They say, we couldn't live in prison knowing that we were framed unless we forgave. But then they'll say, one of them said, but I want all of you to know, he said, that colluded in my, framing me for the murder of whatever it was. He said, God knows. And he said, God's going to judge us one day. That's what Kant was saying. There had to be that understanding that God saw things. So, I would have never started putting the Jim Wells County deputy, on my site, because I purposefully submitted to what they wanted. Park your car inside, do all that, even though you don't have to. And even though what you did was illegal by putting a sticker on it, I'd just let you do it. But then when you started, my daughter on her own says to me, she was getting nervous because they kept going by her. That set me off. So I'm sure Tommy Nichols is happy old John's. All these guys that I known for all these years, they're all friends. And they all know the cops here, and all the guys know me. And so that's how a lot of these things came about, me knowing things and all. I don't want to reopen the case of that guy that died, that I mentioned at I think it was the Paris Apartments. But to me, being I remember things and teach and study, I kind of get a little view of the overall picture. And the overall picture, to me, is why I said, wait a minute, these things would be highly suspicious if somebody had a history like that, and then one of those guys died under his care. So all those things, that's why these things, and I'm saying this is not light stuff. Sometimes in society, people go to extremes, not in actions, but in their seeing of things. One of the great anti-slavery people, I posted the other day one of the posts, and I had the whole statement from Frederick Douglass, who was he spoke out against slavery, and he was a slave. And his speech is wonderful. You could see him rebuking fellow Christians of his day. He was invited to give, Frederick Douglass was invited to give a speech. And it was a bunch of white people. And they wanted him because they looked up to Douglass. But in the speech he said, and now it's hard for me to do this part, but I must. And he confronted the hypocrisy within the church. And he said, you live and you advocate for all these beliefs, but yet around you, because there was still, even when slavery was abolished, there were still laws in the books that allowed it to continue to happen. And so he said, you worship God, you love God. It was a very good speech. I was going to post the whole speech. I posted it before, but sometimes when I'm posting, it doesn't take the whole things that I copy from other sites. And that one I had to finally, I think I deleted it. But it was a good, it applies to us today because many Christians, I feel, fall into that category where we read Scripture, and then and Scripture deals with this so much in the Old Testament prophets. It says, you're worshiping me, you have your systems of church. I'm going to go to church in a little while. Now I've got to turn my clock back an hour. It says, but you do not care for the oppressed of society. You do not speak out for the oppressed of society. People are intimidated, and God wants us to speak out. I was going to repost one of the videos of a cop shooting the other day, and sometimes I'll try to repost them from YouTube, because then I can put them on like the 5 sites, Twitter and the blog, and I got 5 that I always click when I make my own YouTube video, like this one. So, I forget which one it was, maybe the girl that Officer Fields threw like a rag doll, but I searched for it on YouTube, and it was already deleted. by the person who put it up. And I thought, oh, I know why. Because whenever you deal with these issues, then you're worried. Oh, they're going to go after you. People say that, and they do that. People have said to me over the years, regular people that are just family I met once at the coffee shop, an older man, I think he was a teacher or something, and his daughter and wife, older people, nice people, and I started talking. I said, well, I do some things on these issues, and right away he said, they will go after you. They will go after you. He didn't say that they'll go after your family, but they do. They do. They do. And so it shows me the criminal mind at work. And so my view it's extreme view to embrace that I do not put cops in the category of firefighters, and I do not. I do not. And I know there are Christian cops, and I would just say, you're in an organization that over time has learned immediately, even after the killing of innocent people, the mind of the people in that organization throughout our country, civilian departments, the mind immediately jumps to criminal activity. When Michael Slager, I posted the Slager video, the cop who killed that black man. But there's the one I posted didn't show you him dropping the taser. What Officer Slager did, he shot that man. You saw that on the video I posted. But as he walked up to the man, there's other videos that will show you him nonchalantly walking up to the body. And I think the man was still alive, but he shot him in the back multiple times. And he just quietly dropped his taser next to him, because he was going to say, oh, he took my taser and all. And the blood of the black man coming out. And I'm sure he was going to look to that officer for help. But in the mind of that officer, in a split second, was not. So that in civilian society, if you do that, if you murder while you're committing another crime, that's a capital offense, which merits a death penalty. So in Slager's case, it would be murder and then the obstruction of justice. But they don't charge officers with any of these things. And if they can, they will get them off of these crimes. They will try. So, in my view, the history is one of a criminal mind. Do you understand? It's the immediate. I have never seen a case where a cop mistakenly murdered somebody, and of his own accord, they said, well, it was legitimate, and then he came later and said, I must confess, because I'm a Christian, and I go to church on Sunday, and I must confess that I'm guilty of the murder of this innocent person. Never once. Never once. So that's what you're seeing when I'm telling you. I do not believe that they're capable anymore of civilian, because it's become ingrained within the system. That biker shootout that took place in Texas, there was just a lawsuit because they had all those bikers in jail, and of course they had a big shootout in Texas, but some of the cops had shot into the crowd and probably killed some people, but they're covering that up. And so even the defense lawyers had to sue that prosecutor here in Texas, this just happened recently, to get information because they're hiding information. And the Texas Attorney General, I think it's Paxton, who is certainly no liberal, he ruled on the side of the lawyers for the biker gang and said, you cannot withhold it, and they're still withholding it. Now, that's prosecutors, DAs, they're doing a big thing on that, because what's happening there is all of them, the cops, all of them are colluding to commit crimes, which is the withholding of evidence, and all of them. I believe they've reached a level of the criminal mind that they're incapable of justice. I believe this. And so there has to be, John, what would be your actual view? Oh, if I had my view, we would build like an Alcatraz out there and just begin with everybody that has the name officer or badge. You go out there, and then we review each case. And if you had anything wrong in your past, or we'll look at it, and if you're shown to have not committed crimes, then you're free. And you go into society, and then society changes how it does law enforcement. We're the children of a revolution, and some think it was a rebellion. Because at the time, John Wesley, the great Methodist preacher, he did not agree with the America breaking away from the English crown. And they looked at scriptures and said, you might have a disagreement with the king, but it's unjust for you to cast off all law, all judge, you're under England's crown now. But, of course, our history was we decided, no, we're going to fight for our independence. And in that fight, we killed actual officers and cops, if you want to say it that way. Those that were trying to enforce the law, we killed and said, we're going to start our own thing. Now, that was a revolution or a rebellion, and it was violent. And it cast off all the courts that we were under, all the crown that we were under. It cast all that off and said, we start over. I don't advocate that. I'm saying the history of the country is not that we were going to settle, we had to start over. And I believe, my radical view, it won't happen in my lifetime, I doubt, but I believe that the way law enforcement has now gotten, because I just gave you a few examples, I could give you more. Not only the officers, if there's things that are illegal, but the prosecutor, they all know each other. Many were involved in illegal activities together. I'm not saying all of them, but this came out. There was a judge, it was a case of a judge who wanted to get his ex-wife, he was in a divorce, and that judge had somebody plant pot, marijuana, under the car. Somehow I remember this story, under the car. And then he had one of those cops, whatever, I think it was California, pull his wife over. She went to prison for distribution. It was a large amount of pot. And she swore, my husband, the judge, did it. Nobody listened. She was in jail for years. He did it. That judge, along with the cops in the district, that county, everybody. Okay, so it's to the point where the system is not working. The system is not working. So, what system do you advocate, John? I'm just telling you, they have a corruption and a collusion, which in many cases involved murder, killing. These are the ones you're familiar with. So it's just not working. And so I do advocate that we have to look somewhere else for where the children of revolution. I don't advocate violent revolution, I'm saying so. The system, though, you cannot put more money into the system thinking you're going to change the system. The silly little deputy case showed you that even though I had a nice discussion with that guy, he was mad because you see how I am. And he was mad because I didn't bow and say, oh, I said, this legal, he agreed. It's legal to park here, he agreed. It's legal for me to be, he agreed. But then he waited a week or two and waited till Friday afternoon and said, oh, I'll slap this sticker on. You broke the law. It would be like pulling someone over and lying that they didn't do the blinker or whatever. But you did it out of retaliation, thinking certainly this person wouldn't have a big blog that he would put it on. Well, he does. And I wouldn't have done it for my own sake. My daughter was upset. So they keep passing the house, Dad. I'm going to videotape. Many things have gone on for many years. And many victims knew. Many black people for many years said all of these things. And they're now popular in the mind of people because they've seen them, okay? This is just update again. I'm still going to do the actual teaching video. I'll try and add some verses to it, maybe tomorrow. It's just update. I won't show you my carnival again. The Lord bless thee and keep thee. The Lord make his face shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. The Lord lift up his countenance upon thee and give thee peace.